Imagine a quiet courtroom in 1886. No dramatic arguments, no scandalous headlines, just a dispute over taxes and a railroad company. Yet from this silent stage emerged one of the most powerful concepts in modern law: the idea that a corporation could be treated like a person. This is the forgotten story of Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad, the boring case that quietly changed everything. It all began in California. Santa Clara County wanted to tax the property of Southern Pacific Railroad. The railroad objected, arguing that the tax was unfair and violated the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Yes, the same amendment created to protect the rights of freed slaves after the Civil War. The railroad's lawyers claimed that their corporation was entitled to equal protection under the law, just like a real person. At first glance, it sounded strange. How could a company, a legal fiction, claim the same rights as a human being? When the case reached the U.S. Supreme Court, the justices reviewed a narrow technical issue. They never actually ruled on whether corporations were people. In fact, the court's official opinion said nothing at all about corporate personhood. But here's where it gets strange. The court reporter, a man named J.C. Bancroft Davis, wrote a summary before the official opinion, known as a syllabus. In it, he casually mentioned that the justices had agreed corporations were protected by the 14th Amendment. That single sentence would later be cited as legal precedent, even though the court never actually said it. Over the decades that followed, courts, lawyers, and lawmakers returned again and again to that 1886 case. They referenced the decision as proof that corporations had rights: free speech, due process, even protection against discrimination. Suddenly, businesses had voices in elections, protections from regulation, and access to the same legal shields as individuals. All thanks to a footnote, a summary, a quiet assumption, and most people had no idea it ever happened. Fast forward to the 21st century. Cases like Citizens United versus FEC in 2010 brought the idea of corporate rights to the public spotlight. People were shocked to hear that corporations could spend unlimited money on political campaigns. But the roots of that idea trace back to 1886, to a case no one remembers. Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad became the legal seed for a world where companies could be powerful political actors and legal persons in the eyes of the state. Some legal scholars argue that this was a mistake, a misinterpretation that snowballed into massive consequences. Others believe it was inevitable, that in a capitalist society, corporations must have legal personhood to function. But one thing is certain: the decision shaped how law, finance, and democracy interact today. The roads we drive on, the elections we vote in, and the businesses we rely on. They all operate in a world where corporations have human-like rights. And it all started with a tax dispute. So next time you pass a railroad track or see a company take a political stance, remember, a quiet courtroom in 1886 changed everything. Not with a bang, not with a law, but with a sentence in the margins. This was the boring history that changed everything. For more forgotten stories that shaped law and finance, subscribe to Whispers of Law. Calm storytelling, true history.